Gary Mercer gave his 3 children absolutely everything. Every door held open, every mistake erased, every fall softened before they ever hit the ground. He never let them struggle, not for a single day, because struggle was all he'd ever known as a kid, and he swore his children would never feel it. And that promise, the most loving promise a father can make, is exactly what destroyed all 3 of them. Today, Gary's kids are grown adults who cannot stand on their own, and Gary himself, in his 70s, is nearly broke, having quietly poured his entire retirement into catching children who never learned how to land. He didn't fail them by giving them too little, he failed them by giving them too much, and the reason why is one of the most important and most painful truths about love and money there is. Because the instinct that ruined the Mercer family is running right now in almost every home that has ever loved someone enough to want to protect them. So let me take you back to where it started, not with the kids, but with a boy, decades earlier, making a promise in the cold that he would spend the rest of his life keeping, and breaking his family in the process. Gary grew up with nothing outside Dallas, Texas. Truly nothing. The kind of childhood where the power got shut off, where he worked from the age of 12, where want was just the weather he lived in. And he clawed his way out, built a contracting business with his own 2 hands, brick by brick, until by his 40s, Gary Mercer was genuinely successful. He'd made it. And standing in that success, Gary looked at his 3 kids and made a vow, the most understandable vow in the world. My children will never feel what I felt. Never that cold, never that fear, never that lack. Whatever I can give them, I will. And he meant it beautifully. He paid for everything, the best of everything. When they wanted, he provided, instantly, joyfully. Because being able to give his kids the childhood he never had was the whole reason he'd worked so hard in the first place. To Gary, every gift was a wound from his own childhood, finally healing. How could that be anything but love? It felt like the purest love there was. And for a while, it looked like it was working. But the kids grew up, and life, as it does, started handing them consequences. And every single time, Gary got there first and made the consequence disappear. His oldest failed out of college, so Gary paid for another school, then covered the apartment when that didn't work out either. His daughter ran up debt she couldn't pay, so Gary paid it, quietly, and then paid it again a few years later. His youngest started a business that failed, then another, and Gary funded every one, because that's what a good father does, isn't it? He catches them. Every job lost, every lease broken, every mess made. A phone call to Dad, and it was handled, smoothed over, gone. And every rescue felt exactly like love. But here's what was actually happening, invisibly, underneath each one. A consequence is not just a punishment. A consequence is a teacher. The failed class teaches you to study. The lost job teaches you to show up. The debt teaches you the weight of a dollar. Struggle, faced, is the exact thing that builds a capable human being. And Gary, with the kindest heart imaginable, was stepping between his children and every single teacher they ever had, and quietly paying to have the lessons canceled. He wasn't protecting them from failure. He was protecting them from ever growing strong enough to survive it. And here's the truth that would have saved the whole family if anyone had ever said it out loud. The struggle Gary spent his life protecting his kids from was never the enemy. It was the raw material. Everything that made Gary himself strong, capable, resilient, able to build something from nothing, came directly from the hardship he was so desperate to spare them. His strength was forged by the exact fire he refused to let his children anywhere near. So he handed them comfort and called it love. But he'd confused 2 things that look identical and could not be more different. Making someone comfortable and making someone capable. You cannot do both at the same time. Every time you remove a person's struggle, you also remove their chance to grow strong enough to handle it. And a child who is never once allowed to fall does not grow up graceful and protected. They grow up unable to walk, because walking was always going to require falling first, and someone lovingly made sure they never did. Gary gave his children a life with no struggle, and without meaning to, he gave them a life with no strength. And so the Mercer story ended in the cruelest possible way. 2 disasters at once. Gary is in his 70s now. The business is long sold, and the money from it, the fortune that was supposed to carry him through old age, is nearly gone, dissolved into 3 decades of rescues that never once stuck. And his children? His oldest, past 40, still can't hold a job. His daughter has never in her adult life been out of debt for more than a year. His youngest is still waiting for the next idea, the next check. 3 grown adults who never learned to stand, precisely because they were never once allowed to. And now the catch is gone. Gary can't rescue them anymore. There's nothing left to rescue them with. So for the first time in their lives, the Mercer kids are facing real consequences. In their 40s, with none of the strength a person is supposed to build in their 20s, and no father-shaped safety net left beneath them. Gary sits in a smaller house than the one he raised them in, and understands, far too late, the terrible arithmetic of it. He gave them everything he had, and in doing so, he made sure that the day he could no longer give, they would have nothing, and be no one who could get it for themselves. Now, here's the part worth sitting with, because the instinct that ran the Mercer family into the ground is not a bad instinct. It's one of the most beautiful ones a person has, the urge to protect the people we love from pain. And it doesn't only show up with children. It's the friend we keep bailing out, the partner whose consequences we keep absorbing, the person we love so much that we can't bear to watch them struggle, so we step in every time and quietly rob them of the one thing that would have made them strong. Because here's the hard, loving truth underneath all of it. Struggle, in the right amount, isn't something to save people from. It's the thing that builds them. The most generous thing you can do for someone is often not to carry them and not to clear their path, but to believe they're capable of walking it and to love them enough to let them. Rescue feels like love in the moment, but sometimes the deepest love looks like stepping back, staying close, and letting someone become strong enough to save themselves. Gary loved his children with everything he had. He just never learned the difference between helping them and doing their growing for them. Gary Mercer tried to give his children a life with no struggle, and what he actually gave them was a life with no strength, because the two, it turns out, are made of the exact same thing. He spent a fortune and 30 years of pure love making sure his kids never had to become capable, and they obliged him completely. Love that removes every obstacle isn't the highest form of love. It's a slow, tender theft of a person's ability to stand on their own. The greatest gift you can give someone you love is almost never the rescue. It's the quiet, terrifying faith that they can do it themselves, and the room to prove it. Sometimes catching someone is how you make sure they never learn to fly. Subscribe, because there are far more of these than you would ever believe, and the next one might be about the person you love most.